please state your full name for the camera?
Richard Foy,
Okay.
sometimes known as Linus Richard Foy.
Well, first question I want to ask you is, where did you grow up?
I was born in the Bronx. We had a house right near the elevated trains, so I'm used to trains. And my first 12 years were there. And then I came up to Esopus to Marist Prep for 3 years. And then came over here, finished high school 1 year,
Oh,
and did 3 years of college here.
and where did you go to school? Where did you go to school? I mean, your primary education.
St. Francis of Rome
How
in the
was-
north, in the Wakefield sections, right near Mount St. Michael or right near Mount Vernon.
How was it? Did you have good memories of your grammar school years?
Yeah, we had the presentation nuns. They were tough, but they were very good. I learned more English there than I learned in high school and college. And they gave you good, sound, fundamental education. Their mother house is located in Newburgh, and about that time they had some of their land taken for Stewart Airfield, so they used to talk about that. But they're good.
So where did you go to high school?
I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. Where did you go to high school?
Okay, I went. There was a preparatory school for people who might want to be brothers, and it originally was located on this campus, but in 1942 it was moved across to Esopus, New York. They had bought part of the Oliver Hazard Payne estate from the Protestant Episcopal Church. So I was in that first class over there for 3 years. And then I came over here and I did, it was called St. Anne's Hermitage, and I did my senior year here.
What inspired you to become a brother? Was there some, perhaps maybe an experience with a priest that had shaped you?
Admiration for some of the, some of the people. I didn't know the brothers that well, although they taught at Mount St. Michael. But basically, I got to know a couple of them, and they invited me up. My brother came up too, and he left after 2 years. And I wound up at MIT, but he enjoyed it. Most of the kids who went there never became brothers, but they really enjoyed the time. And how could you go wrong? You had 36 people with 6 good teachers. Where do you get that kind of ratio? And in fact, I was contacted by 2 fellas yesterday, who saw a picture of their junior 8, and they wanted to know, is there an alumni association? I had to say no. We do track former brothers, and we have like an association of them, but they never really tracked the high school students because they go, they disappear, they go to a different high school, they finish, and then you lose track of them. It's a terrible job to try to keep track of something like that.
Could you describe for me your college experience?
Well, this Marist College was just in the process of moving to a degree program. They used to give an associate's degree. They'd call that now. And they had moved to degree, so I was in like the 4th class that was going to wind up with degrees. So we got here in 47, and you did your college in 3 years and 2 summers. And I wound up with 150 credits, a lot of 2-point courses. Everything was crammed in. One of the differences was that they insisted that you get your major and also all your education courses, whereas before that, typically in teacher training colleges, you got the education courses and a smattering of it. Here you had to get the full major. So we had a good. Now, when I was there, if you want to talk about the railroad,
Actually, what did you major in?
mathematics. Okay.
What inspired you to major in mathematics?
I was good at it. I in high school we used to have to do compositions, and on 20 you never got more than 18. And the teacher would say, "Well, no composition's perfect. I think once in 4 years I got a 19. You know, that must have been a very good one. Nobody ever got a 20. That had to be perfect." And what worried me, I could have gone in history. That was the other major offer at the time. You can write a good theme, and the person says, "Well, I didn't like it," or "You could have done better." In mathematics, it's either right or wrong. They couldn't tell you. So I sort of drifted toward math. My brother had been in mathematics ahead of me. He went to MIT after. He's 2 years older than me. And I wanted to copy him and, get into mathematics or engineering. So I wound up as a math teacher.
How many years did you teach math?
You have to speak
Oh,
a
I'm
little
sorry. How many years did you teach math?
At what level? When I first graduated, I went down to New York, and I taught there for 8 years.
What school did you teach at?
It was called St. Anne's Academy. It was a bunch of brownstones on 76th Street, which eventually became decrepit. And it was moved over, and it's now Archbishop Malloy High School, which has an excellent reputation in Queens.
As a student at Marist back in the 1940s, what was the feeling at Marist College towards the river, perhaps even towards the bridge?
I remember the bridge. You know, the interesting part was that the trains went very slowly across it. And the legend was that one of the caissons had slipped when it was being built, and the structure wasn't strong enough, which is probably a legend because I think that's been proven untrue. However, they were restricted to 8 or 9 miles an hour, so they were slow. I don't remember the trains being as long or as lengthy as the trains going up and down the Hudson. When I was in school in Esopus, we used to sit in the boathouse and watch the trains go down on the east side, and then we would count and we would compare who got the right number, and it was always between 100 and 120. You don't have that on the east side anymore. It's almost all on the west side, but you have that there too with several locomotives. I don't think the trains are quite as long going across, and it was just it was there. You know, we didn't know any of its history. We just knew that it carried freight by that time. It wasn't carrying any passengers. And there was no way of getting up on it because when you're in Poughkeepsie, it's about 100 feet over your head. So, there was no real attempt to explore the bridge. It was there. But
what about the river itself? Did you have many activities on the river as a student?
We had a lot of activity on the river over in Esopus. We used to swim off the dock, and as a college student, we used to take vacations over there, and we'd swim across the river and back. So you weren't supposed to, but everybody used to do it. Or they'd swim up to Esopus Island or down. Not everybody, just it was a test to see your swimming endurance. But it was, it was a beautiful river. You could sit there and you could see the storms come down the river, and you'd think of Rip Van Winkle and the bowling with the thunder. That's the sound. That's probably what got Washington Irving to talk about it. So it was there. I don't think you sort of thought about it as much as now later, when you get to see the Mississippi and you see some of the huge rivers in Europe, you realize how big the Hudson is, how magnificent it is. We knew it was a tidal river. We knew it had fish. We knew it had seaweed. We knew it had debris on it. And we had a lot of, it was just there. We never tried to cross it during winter, although many students here, by the time I got here, used to try to walk across it. And in the early 60s, you didn't have it always open. You'd have a Coast Guard cutter go up maybe once every 2 weeks. But apart from that, it was frozen solid and you could walk across it. So some of them did it.
So what would you say is the most interesting aspect about the Hudson Valley?
There's no one thing. When you go out west, you've got these 12,000-foot mountains and spectacular scenery along the coast. You don't quite get that. But what you get is a gentle situation, and the more you study it, the more you appreciate it. Last Saturday, my brother and I went up to Atlanta. Have you ever been there?
No.
Yeah. Did you ever hear of it? It's the home of Frederick Church, and he built what's a rather zany-looking house. They always say it's a Persian influence. The guide said he never got to Persia. He got to Lebanon and to Syria, but he never got to Persia. But the views are spectacular. I saw that. I went up there in '67, and just on a Sunday afternoon to view it, and I always remembered it. You just can't get it out of your mind. Now it's a little bit overgrown now. They're trying to bring it back. But in '67, the trees weren't that high. Now the trees are getting a little high, and you have, so there's a statement that you can. Also, I went in July. Don't go in July. Go in September, October, when the air is clearer. Then you get a beautiful view to the west of the Catskills, to the east of the Berkshires, and then looking south, it's like a panorama of the river. It's really magnificent. So the Catskills are not even the Adirondacks, but they're nice mountains. And there's so much to do in this area. You can go rock climbing in the Shawangunk. You can ski in a lot of different spots. You can fish. It's just a good place.
Could you please tell me a little bit about your time as president of Marist College? I mean, how did you become president of the college?
I was named president when I was 28. The college had been founded in 29 it was called Marist Training School, and it gave a 2-year program, and then the graduates would go out teaching, and they would normally get the rest of their degree with Fordham University, working part-time. And the brothers felt that was becoming unsatisfactory. You have to remember, in 1929, you didn't need a bachelor's to be a teacher. You just need your certificate from a teacher training school, which was 2 years. So the brothers they began feeling dissatisfied with the sort of the makeshift courses. It's nothing, no knock on Fordham, but it just really wasn't. So they decided they wanted to go to a 4-year college. That was pretty common. That's how Mount St. Mary got founded. Catholic University, there was a fellow named Roy De Ferrari who was like the Johnny Appleseed of small colleges, and he kept encouraging the orders to start their own colleges, that they would get a better type of education than they would if they just sort of went part-time little by little. So they named a young fella, his name is Brother Paul Ambrose Fontaine, and they named him as dean. And he came in 43. And the president was, the titular was the provincial, the group of brothers, the head group of the provincial council, and the provincial was the nominal president of the college. And this went on, but basically it was Brother Paul who really ran this institution. And eventually the state said, this is wacky. You've got a dean for 15 years, and you have a president every 3 years. It doesn't make sense. So they made Brother Paul president in 1957. And he was president for 1 year, and he went to the general chapter of the brothers, which is the general meeting every 12 years of representatives from every province, and he got elected as an assistant general. So when they came back to speak to the group here, they began looking at people, and he said, look, don't get older people, get a younger person that can stay with it. So essentially, I was 28, so that fitted the thing. And to my surprise, I was named president. So it was a bit of but they knew who I was, and it was, there was a good cadre of teachers up here that could sort of hold the fort until I got going, But when I came up here, I had a little breathing room. I commuted up while I was still teaching at Cardinal Hayes High School. And I had a chance to sort of think. And being young, I could also ask questions of the older presidents. And presidents are always willing to give advice. And and then I took a course down in Washington, one of these compact 2-week courses on college accounting. Not on college administration, just accounting. I want to know how to get your teeth into this. And but as I came up, some of them said, a couple of the fellows said, Brother Paul's vision for this college is not going to work. His vision, it would be a commuter college, and that you would draw students from the local area and get probably 500 or 600. And they said, well, we have toured, or we've actually surveyed all the Catholic grammar schools around here. There just aren't that many students. And besides students here, Dutchess, I found out after, is the biggest exporter of students for colleges in the state of any county. So they said it's just not going to work. And in my studies, I had decided that 600 was not a good size for a college. You had to be at least 1,200. So you connect the dots. If you're not going to get them from here, where are you going to get them from? You're going to have to get them from outside, which means you're going to have to create dormitories, which we did. So one of my first big changes was to move to a residential college from a strictly commuter college. But the Paul had recommended that I look at night and evening division, and we put that in my first year up here, opening up the evening division. That worked out very well. So it was, it was quite a, and then actually when you're the president, you're up here and you have 100 brothers and you have 20 lay students, you look around and you say, what kind of activities can I get for them? What kinds of sports? You know, and you look out your window and you see the river. And when I was a student here, the regatta, the Poughkeepsie Regatta was run. And my brother had rowed for MIT. He didn't get down here to row. He had back problems. But there was certain, the young guy, there were California and Cornell, and there was one other school that lived down where the Marist boathouses are. And they used to come up and watch us play softball and just sort of wonder, because they were here the whole month of June. And, you know, so there was, and then we would watch the races. So that, you know, that's adventure. Then it ended. I think it ended my last year. It ended in 50 or 51. Pretty easy reason. Before World War II, it was essentially, let's just call it an Ivy League type of thing. The young men came from affluent families. And the trick to this was they used to row about a mile. And then they had to row 4 miles here. So they used to take the whole month of June to get the stamina to row the 4 miles. Well, after that, you wound up with GIs and a different breed, and they couldn't afford to take June off. They had to go out and work. So, you know, they moved it out of here. There were complaints, too. The complaints were that if you got a drawing closer to Highlands, the water was quieter. So you had an unfair advantage. But basically, the whole notion of taking, you know, when you look at who the colleges were, you had California and Washington from the West Coast, but then you had almost, you know, Columbia, Dartmouth, Navy, Cornell. You know, they were quality colleges, but the people just didn't have a month to practice rowing and do nothing else. So it sort of came to an end.
Can you describe
I think
I'm sorry. Can you describe what the spectacle looked like from those regattas?
we never went down. It was just sort about this level was the halfway mark. They would start up at Crum Elbow past that you know that, and if you get up there, if you're on the river, if you look down, you can see a 4 miles. So it went from there down underneath the railroad bridge, underneath the regular bridge, and ended below that. They did have a train, which I had not noticed. I don't know if it was still operating on the other side, that sold grandstand seats, and you could watch it. But generally, you watched the part that you saw. The section we saw was interesting because they would take a breather about halfway. Now, they wouldn't just stop, but they would definitely slow down, and some of them would even just rest on their oars for 20 or 30 seconds, then go back to it again. You know. So we were more intrigued with the guys getting the boats in the water, getting the boats out of the water. That was the romance of the thing. And so when I took a look, I said, the cheapest sport and the best sport to put Marist on the map was rowing. Because nobody heard of Marion or Marist College, but when it hit the paper, Marist had rowed against Amherst or Williams. That's good company, you know. Georgetown, you have, you're known by your friends, and that was better than trying to go by basketball or any other sport. So that was our first sport, actually, and it worked out very well. Well, you say, why? Because the river, because it's there. It makes a lot of sense. It's been one of our better sports. We had sailing. I don't know if they still have sailing here. And we had, in fact, I used to row some of they used to bring in singles and doubles, and I used to row when I was president during the summer. I'd go down and great exercise, but it's it's tiresome. So that's my that's part of the romance of the river. It's so many things to so many people that it's hard to say it's this one thing. It's a cumulative effect that it's there.
So as president, what other memories do you have of the Poughkeepsie Railroad Bridge?
Well, it's not something that you got up every morning and thought about.
Mm-hmm.
It was there.
So,
You would see the trains cross. You could see sometimes the smoke coming out of the diesels. You could hear them a little bit, very quiet, but it wasn't enough to disturb you. Not like the L's in New York City. You had to stop talking when they went by. But here it was just going across. They were lumbering across, back and forth. It was just like cars going on the street. You just assumed it'd go forever. We didn't know who ran it. We didn't know where the trains were going. We know they went to Maybrook. That's about the only town that we knew. We've since learned, of course, that it was operated by the New Haven at the end, and the New Haven. But then it got taken over by Penn Central and by Conrail. I think it was owned by Penn Central when the fire occurred.
yes.
So that, but what began happening, first of all, you got rumors that the bridge was structurally unsound. Stay away from it. I think that goes way back. The construction was held up for years by rivermen who claimed that the capsins, the caissons, were going to be a navigation hazard. So there was a lot. It became a legal mess when it was being built. There's a very good short essay by Arthur Adams, who was the president of the Lehigh, Erie, and Walkway Railroad, and after '74. They were making sort of a play to get it, but I think it's an essay in a book called The Hudson River in History, and he wrote it about '83 and has a pretty good description of how it, not the mechanics of how it got built, but where it was going to at that time, and why the Penn Central and Conrail were not interested in building it. You could almost think maybe it was arson. It wasn't arson. It was sparks from a train. They don't know if it was from a defective brake or what. But by the time I got out, somebody said, "Hey, the bridge is on fire," and we went out and looked, and you could see the smoke on this side, and you could just see the edge of the train ending on the other side as it was leaving. So you knew how it got started. And then it was more interesting. Who's going to go up there to try to put it out? How do you get up there? How do you get equipment up there? I really didn't. I couldn't stay there for hours watching, but I could see that it was on fire, and it was scary. So I was called out of my office. Somebody said, "Hey, the bridge is on fire." We went down and looked. We didn't go down. I could see it right from my office, so I knew there was problems with it. But we sort of assumed it would get either rebuilt or torn down.
Have you actually ever been up on the bridge?
No. You have, right? So
Yes, I have.
You're a lucky guy. Yeah, I've seen pictures of it. Fred Schaefer was an attorney in Corbally and Garland's office. I don't know if he's still there or out, but he was a young man at the time. But I don't associate him with the railroads extent. My biggest association, which I picked up derivatively, is that probably the chief architect for it was John Flack Winslow. And John Flack Winslow had his estate on Marist property. But his background was in steel. He had the rights to the Bessemer process. And I believe he was the first president of the Poughkeepsie Bridge Company. But I sort of backed into that. First of all, we never knew that. I never knew that until I came back here this year. The northern part of the property we always called Woodcliff. And Woodcliff was an amusement park which had failed and closed down. But it turned out the people who built the park used the word Woodcliff because John Flack Winslow called his estate Woodcliff. And there is a cliff. It's where the Gartland houses are, and you can look down and see the softball fields and out over the river. And that's, but he basically, he came down here to retire in 1868. And he had made us money up in Troy in steel and done a good job. Then he had been instrumental in getting the monitor built and really organized getting that built in 100 days by using 4 or 5 different iron manufacturers, because the 100-day compressed, there was no way one outfit could do it. So but he also, from his background, it looks like, particularly studying some of his early deeds, that he was getting ore rights along the Connecticut border in Amenia and Millerton. And he was working out deals and putting them in the deeds. He didn't buy the things, he just bought the ore rights then. And I think he had the idea that he could bring the ore down to the foundries, which were working in right on the river. And why were the foundries on the river? Well, they needed coal. Where did they get the coal from? The Delaware and Hudson Canal. So it was a natural place. And there were a lot of foundries. There were foundries in Peekskill. Famous one is the West Point Foundry in Cold Spring that made the Parrott gun during the Civil War. But so he decided, he started the Poughkeepsie and Eastern Railroad, which comes in from Amenia through Pleasant Valley, and then it's up at 400 feet. It's got to get down to the river. So it curls, and then it curls back down right on the Marist territory. So it's gone now, but the right-of-way is still there. And it's right next to the Marist baseball field. But then it goes under the Route 9, and it goes right across the Marist property there. So I got very interested in that, found out that he was, if you want, the founder of that. And I think my guess is that what triggered it was that he was familiar with the ore, which he was being taken up to Troy, because the railroad along Route 22 was built long before the railroad was built along the river. So he had a route in there, and he decided to get it in. He also foresaw at that stage that he wanted to get to Connecticut, so that Poughkeepsie and Easton backed into the Connecticut and Western. Everybody was building railroads after the Civil War, and eventually the Poughkeepsie and Easton got taken over by the Central New England, which really was controlled by the New Haven. And the Central New England didn't really want the Poughkeepsie and Easton going down to the New York Central. they wanted the branch lines that would cut into there that they could then tie into the other line, which was going to cross the bridge. So you'd need a doctoral thesis to write on railroads in Dutchess County at that time. They were all over the spot. But it's sort of fascinating. And then, so basically my interest in the bridge got peaked again because of because of John Flack Winslow, of studying his background. Very bright guy.
Once the bridge is completed, would you go up on the bridge to look at the views of the
Oh yeah, no, I'd be happy to go up there. My worry is whether there'll be enough funds to do it. I think you're caught between a rock and a hard place. It's still cheaper to put this up than it is to tear it down. It's going to be very expensive to tear it down. So it's a good problem. The problem is we're coming out to an economy right now where money is tight, and if the so I understand they're scaling back some of their plans, which are good. I mean, from grandiose to small, get something up because you can always work it better. But the interesting part that was built in 1888. That means it's 120 years old, and the steel is still as good as the day it was put up. It's not, it's a very solid structure. So with a little bit of maintenance, it probably can last another couple hundred years. So that's why I'm sort of for it. But I just hope that they can get at least enough money to get the thing started, to get some sort of and what would be terrific if they can get the walkways. I think you do have the rail trail on that side, and they're talking about the rail trail on this side, which would go along the Poughkeepsie and Easton a little bit, up by Morgan Lake. I would go, and then eventually it curls down to Hopewell Junction. So that would be a fabulous setup. The killer with Conrail is they broke down the rails going in at both ends to make sure that anybody who bought it wasn't going to be able to use it. They should be put in jail.
So do you think people will be attracted to the Hudson River Valley because of the bridge? You think more people will come?
I think it'll be, there's a whole variety of attractions. You have West Point, you have Cold Spring. Now I mentioned Olana, you have the Vanderbilt. I had my niece and her family come in, and everybody talks about New York City, but as you move north of the city, there are some tremendous places to visit, but they don't have the cachet of Radio City of the Statue of Liberty. But yes, I think that the Hudson's probably one of the greatest rivers in the world. And it's got everything. And as you go up past Albany, the Hudson is still a beautiful river. So it's, the more you can do I think the environmental people, the Scenic Hudson, they've all done a tremendous job of making us aware that we have a treasure here. And we just have to continue to improve it, and also make the best use of what we have. So you wouldn't build the Poughkeepsie Railroad Bridge today, but it's there. And when you look at the other places, when you go to Rome, nobody would build a Colosseum, but you go to Colosseum to see it. So the Poughkeepsie Bridge, would just give spectacular views. I mentioned Alana, there's spectacular views. Have you ever been there? Yeah. And, there are great views from West Point. It's just a magnificent river. And it's a quiet river. It's not noisy, but it's frightening when you get real close to it when you're down. It's a big river. It's wide. It carries a lot of water. It's a tidal river, so it has an amazing variety of fish species. But I'm not a biologist, but I know you have that, And they're hoping at some stage to get salmon back in here. At one time it was a salmon river. Now I guess it's mostly shad, herring, and sturgeon. But we used to catch eels, which I hate. But
A lot of eels, I can attest to that.
The bridge is like, the bridge by itself is nothing. The bridge and the Hudson River is something. And then you keep adding these things and you get a cumulative effect of a beautiful area. And it's beautiful in the winter. I don't know why people go to Florida. They're cold, but you have great views. I used to ski. I loved Hunter and Catamounts, and there's just so many. You can hike. There's just so much to do. You're not climbing Mount Everest. It'll never be. Geologically, it's an old setup, but it's still nice. It's great.
Going back to the trains, how frequently would the trains cross the bridge, like in your general estimation?
I would gather maybe once or twice an hour. Well, maybe, I don't remember at night, but during the day, generally when you looked up, there was a train on there. Yeah. It was, now, did you look up because it was there, or did you look up just, but I think it probably had, of course it was in competition with the bridge up at Castleton, and it didn't hook into the major lines over on the other side. It hooked up into smaller ones. And Conrail and Penn Central wanted to hook up to the major ones, hopefully that they were part of Conrail or Penn Central. So it wasn't as busy as, for example, as you see the Conrails going up on the other side of the river now. I think they run 24 trains an hour. 24 trains a day, but which is a lot of traffic going down there. But, I think rail traffic will increase. But there's no hope of getting this back onto rail traffic. That's dead. So let's make the best use of what we can. And I think the notion of a walkway is just a very clever and imaginative use of a very important part of the Hudson Valley.
I'm just curious, how long were you president of Marist?
21 years. Yeah.
Both of us are college grads. I'm glad you created a good legacy for us.
Well, it was
graduated from here.
It was interesting. I did all the bad things. I got a lay board of trustees. I changed it to a residential college. I ran an evening division, and I made it co-ed. So you can blame me for all those things.
Those are all good things.
Well, you're just. And the interesting thing is, we try to do those things before the curve rather than after. We went co-ed before a lot of the major colleges did, and we just, let's not get into thing. But I just felt They says, well, you had to make money, and I wasn't interested in making money. I just felt women were getting the short end of the stick in terms of education, which sounds like Matthew Vassar, but the, I had worked with Jack Gartland, who was a close friend, and unconsciously I had gotten to him that women are not getting their share in terms of sports. So when the McCann Center was built, we both agreed that women would get an equal priority to the thing. And I think, he almost all the facilities we've built now have given women the softball fields and so on. There's always something good for them. But my concept was women are just as smart as men. One of my big disappointments in life was that I think women would make better mathematicians in general because they are more intuitive. And see, people think mathematics is sort of logic, that you go from here and you plot up to there. Most discoveries in mathematics are insights that you get, that you say, maybe it's this way. And women are good at that. But the problem is women get oriented not to be good at that. Like that, they're going into accounting, which is good. You scribble and you make all the numbers add up, and that's good. That's not mathematics. That's arithmetic. But when you get some very competent women, they're very, very, very good. But one of the problems is most of their teachers they had in elementary school went to teacher colleges, and their teachers could be women, but basically, in many cases, they didn't really like math. They liked English and history, but they have to teach math. So you get a complete cycle. And you got some very intuitive people. You get a complete cycle of bad math teaching. And then how do you it's the exceptional fish that can get through all these sieves and turn out to be very good.
I think I had most of those bad math teachers myself in grade
Well, not
school.
bad math. It's a question of, the average, you don't really have departmentalization in most grammar schools. You have, maybe you don't have it. When I was in grammar school, you had one teacher, and then an art teacher came in, and a music teacher, and that's it. But now you get, you get departments of mathematics and departments of history. If you have that, if you're big enough, okay. But if you're just stuck with the one teacher, generally that one teacher will like history and English or literature more than he or she will like math. So they teach math because they have to. But that's a minor gripe. That has nothing to do with the railroad.
All right. Paul, anything more? Or?
No.
Thank you very much.
Okay, good.
We appreciate your time.
I'll probably get a 10-second